Good evening, everyone. I'm going to wait just a moment to see if people will see the notifications and be able to join us, and then I'll get started. I also have my um, technical support coming from somebody in a different state, and we're doing things a little different tonight, so I want to make sure she is watching. Okay. All right, good. So, a lot of you know who Lori is. For those of you who don't, Lori is someone who's been helping, it's pretty much behind the scenes for the longest time, and it only was more recently that she started to put herself out there and let people know who the woman behind the curtain was. At any rate, Lori is the person who is helping me yet again tonight with this video. The way that I'm doing this, in case you guys can't tell, oh hi Maya, is from a phone. And basically what I have tonight is two cell phones to do this. So I don't have my big beautiful office anymore, and I don't even have a computer set up. That's a whole nother issue. So I wanted to come to you and do a live and answer some questions and explain some things going on so that, number one, you guys know I'm here. And number two, I'm at least trying this out in my, new setup. At least, hopefully this is temporary, but at least we'll know if it works because I'm going to go with the flow best I can. So, looking for any signs from Lori that things are not doing okay. Hey, Lando. So, for those of you who just stumbled across this live and you're not sure who I am constitutional attorney Catherine Henry, and I seems like I've been quiet for a while, but I am still fighting the fight for freedom every day, and I will continue to do that, regardless of how the headlines are playing out, whether we are getting the story from mainstream media that everything's back to normal, or there's new mandates. Either way, I guarantee you the government's up to no good, and it's up to people like us to do something about it. So, with that being said, I want you guys to all keep in mind. Oh, hey, Aaron, that I am doing this from my phone, and it's from StreamYard. So we do have two different YouTube feeds as well as a Facebook feed that are all coming in. So for those of you who are commenting or having questions, I will see. Oh, hi, Lacey. I will see some of them, but I won't see all of them because on the cell phone screen I can only see about 6 words at a time. And that's why Lori's helping me to make sure I'm hopefully catching all the questions that I can and being able to answer everything that I can. And hopefully telling me if my audio cuts out because we did a test phone call anyway, and we had some issues. So hopefully it'll work from here. All right. Basically at that point, hopefully I'll see on here if Lori texts me that there's an issue or a question. But let's see. I did a post today, and quite frankly, I've been wanting to do a video for quite some time. But I did a post today because we are still getting a lot of people reaching out, emailing, Facebooking, texting, whatever, calling. And it's honestly a lot of the same questions as it was, back in April, May, June, July of last year. And quite honestly, the answer is really the same. The government doesn't have a right to do it. Whatever it is that they're doing. Your employer doesn't have a right to force you to do whatever it is that they're trying to force you to do. How you can stop that is really, what are you willing to do to fight for it? Some people are just going to have to be able to walk away from their employer or their children's school or whatever the situation is. Some people, they don't have another source of income, and they they need to put food on the table. A single mom who works at, a state university or something. great paying job, great benefits, insurance, and then she's like, what do I do? You're going to have to make those decisions. I don't have a Staples easy button for life, certainly for myself, and I don't have one for you. What I can do is tell you that anything worth having is worth fighting for. I can tell you that the closer that we get to being on God's mission for us, the more the devil is going to push back and say, oh, you thought this was going to be easy. Well, let me show you another thing. And I can tell you what the law says and certainly what the Constitution says. That's what I can tell you. And I can tell you that no matter what you're going through in this, you're not alone. I have lost many, there's been many sleepless nights just staying up writing briefs, but I have lost a lot of sleep just for the nights where I stay up thinking about, I'm going to try to say this without tearing up, about people like Deborah Berry, who pulled up to a Menards in April of 2020 to get I can't even think of what it was at the time, but it was a fuse, I think, for her breathing apparatus. I can't think of any of my words tonight, but she needed a little tiny piece that I'm sure Menards sells 1 million of in a given calendar year. And I don't even think it would have been very costly. It's probably a very cheap part, but it was something that was needed to make her oxygen tank or whatever breathing machine work. And they turned her away because she couldn't wear a mask. And this is a woman who, if you knew, I don't even know her all that well, but I've heard a lot of her story, and it breaks my heart that for her to go through what she went through just to physically get to Menards in the first place and get out of her vehicle and make it into the store, that was an uphill battle for her. And then to be there and have them tell her they're just going to turn her away and they're not even going to offer to give her, to go find it for her and just leave her by the door. Nothing. I wish the torment for her stopped there. But I was in the middle of writing, I don't remember which one at this point, but a Supreme Court brief fighting the government BS. And I got a series of text messages and calls from her when she was, I don't even remember which surgery it was. I believe she was getting ready for some surgery and she was required to have, I want to say an X-ray or CT or something prior to the surgery. And they put her in a corner or a hallway. Spectrum did. As though she was less than, I don't know, a bag of garbage. As though she wasn't a human being. Because she couldn't wear a mask. The woman obviously is on oxygen and has so many other medical conditions that I'm sure I can't even list them all if I had to study for them and take a test. And the medical providers, see, crying and doing a video doesn't work because then my nose runs. It's great. My point is not to have a video about Deborah. My point is to tell you that is stuff that woman told me so long ago now. And thousands of you have reached out to me since then. Don't feel like you're alone. If I've never gotten back to you, don't feel like I've ignored you. I have thousands of emails and phone calls and voicemails and things that I have never caught up from yet. Never. And I may never. I'm going to try. But each one of your stories has an impact for me. Each one. I had known my friend Maya for quite some time before I really heard her story with her daughter. And as a mom, and as someone who can very much relate, you know, issues that can come about from vaccines was nowhere on my radar until I ran for state rep a few years back. And luckily, MVC has a PAC, and they sent a questionnaire, and I filled it out, and they decided to get behind me and support me. And I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't even know this whole side of our lives existed to even fight about. So my point is, with that, you're not alone. Everyone's struggle is real, and some of our struggles, some of your struggles are, you know, it's a struggle to just be alive every day. It's a struggle to put a paycheck in the bank and food on the table in a way that you've already struggled, but you never in your life would have imagined it would be this bad now. As if the government wasn't ruining our lives enough as it is, they've now made it 10 times worse. So, I want you to know that you're not alone. And even if you don't hear back from me personally, or you know, you don't hear me reference your situation in a video or answer your question because I've somehow missed it with the, you know, a bunch of the questions that have come out as comments. Don't feel like your situation is not important. Don't feel like your fight for your freedom or your safety or your well-being is not valuable. It is. And you are not alone. And it is my hope that all of the resources that I have put out and will continue to put out for the public are something that you'll be able to really find something, some nugget in there that you can use as a tool at your disposal to apply to whatever situation you're in. If you look at some of those horribly boring briefs that I've written just in my own case, the Allegan County Election Day case, that in case you haven't found out, it is still going on. If you look at some of those briefs, they are a gold mine. It doesn't matter what your situation is. It doesn't matter what, you know, if you're battling a private employer or a public body, or you know, whether it's about your child going to school or you know, you being discriminated against. Cheryl, a lovely woman from the Lansing area, was being discriminated against with her own housing, her own home. She lived in an apartment where she paid rent and was following the lease, and they basically were trying to bully her and scare her into, you know, wearing a mask. And even as the orders were rescinded or vacated by the courts, they continued to harass her until the point that they ran out her lease and then just wouldn't renew her lease. I mean, Cheryl, if you're out there watching, I haven't forgotten about you either. And I'm really sad that I didn't have the time I thought I would be able to make time to, you know, drive the hour and a half to your apartment and to sit out and play games with you and the other residents there who just want to breathe fresh air. You're not forgotten. And I certainly hope you're not alone physically where you're at, that I hope that you're doing okay too. At any rate, this video is not meant to go down memory lane. I want to answer your questions, and the last set of videos, besides the stuff about my trial, the last set of videos that I did when I still had a computer all hooked up in my house in Hudsonville was I ended with video number 3. I said I was going to come back with video number 4 and answer questions, whatever constitutional question you had. And I never got to do that. Well, I want to do that now. So um, I hope I can have just a few questions on that because um, I want to be able to give you some updates on some other pieces. And quite frankly, if I don't see, let me see. I'm going to try to see if I can scroll here. If I don't see any questions pop up, let's see. Okay, so before somebody pops up with a question, I'll give you some updates and then you can think of your question, okay? And my back is already killing me doing this video, sitting in this chair. If you saw my setup right now, if you're here in person, you'd laugh. And no, I don't have the lights turned down low or have some sort of cool special effects in the background. That is just sky. And I'm outside being lit by the most rusty, crappiest looking lighting fixture that looks like it could fall off with the next hurricane or gust of wind over 5 miles an hour. Anyway, I'm doing my best sitting right outside a garage. But in any event, I'm going to hang in there as long as my phone battery does, because I'm also nowhere near an outlet. So let's see. Why don't I have a computer in my house? Well, okay. I'm going to try to do this in 3 minutes. I think that's realistic. And Lori probably just did it in 3 seconds, but I'm going to try to do it in 3 minutes to give you the whole update, and then you guys can think of your constitutional questions. So, I've always known I wanted to move back to Florida. For those of you who don't know, I grew up down here. I lived in Florida for 12 years growing up. Once my parents got divorced, I spent the summers in Michigan in the UP, where I was born, and the school years down in Orlando. And between my 9th and 10th grade year, I moved back in with my dad, who by then was in Minnesota. Spent 10 years in Minnesota, and it is darn cold there, I tell you what. But it gets a lot more sunshine. And my dad waited until literally I was studying for the bar exam in Minnesota as a 23-year-old single mom who had just purchased her first real house and got her first real attorney job all secured and lined up. I was studying for the bar exam, and that's when my dad told me that they were moving back to Michigan after 10 years. And I'm like, no way, you're moving back to Michigan. If you would have told me like a couple months ago, I could have just signed up for the Michigan bar. But okay. So I took the bar that very next day. And then again on the next day, because it's a 2-day bar exam. And of course, I passed with flying colors on the first try because I work my butt off for everything I've ever had. And I was heartbroken. And that left me with literally no family in the entire state. And my son's father, he was busy. So I was a public defender half-time and a family law attorney the other half of the time at a private firm in a very small town. And the second time, daycare had turned my son away because he was not feeling well. And I had to go and put him in the back of the courtroom with a box of crayons and a coloring book and sit there and argue for the 15 hearings I would have in any given morning. Second time that happened, I said, enough's enough. I got to sell my house. I got to pack up all my stuff. I got to battle my ex in court about being able to move out of state. I have to take another bar exam, and I have to start all over again. And that's what I did. And I love my family, and at times they have done an immense amount for me, but my family didn't help one iota with that. They didn't help me physically pack up my stuff. They didn't help me drive the truck, the big moving truck, or my minivan to get to Michigan. They didn't help me unpack. In fact, they went on vacation. I had my computer and my purse and my Michigan Barbary iPod that had all my studying for the Michigan bar. All of that was stolen out of my vehicle while I was literally physically unloading the moving truck into my house in Midland, Michigan. Um, it was an uphill battle. I'm just going to put it that way. And I didn't have anyone to watch my son while he was 4, while I was studying for the Michigan bar exam. Keep in mind, everybody else that was coming fresh out of law school, they've been studying Michigan law for at least 3 years. And the Michigan bar is state specific. You have to know, at least you did back then, 16 different topics to be able to be prepared to write an essay on. So that was challenging because I had been a practicing attorney working full time right up until that point. I moved there and I had a week and a half to study for the bar exam, and then my materials had been stolen. So I had to drive all the way down to Novi, get myself another little Barbary iPod that had all my lectures on there, buy a new computer. Anyway, fun times. I have no idea why I went off on that track, but I knew that once my husband and I, we got married and we had 4 kids, and the year we actually finally took our first vacation with no kids, we went down to Florida. We went to Cocoa Beach, and I was like, wow. I love walking on the beach and having the sand in my toes, and this is amazing. Someday I'm going to be down here. In fact, I want to move down here right now. And my son was living with us full time, but his daughters were only with us half the time. And I said, okay, Mike, I'm going to make you a deal. I'm going to move down to Florida to the beach as soon as Jacelyn and Alex are done with high school. The second they're done, I'm out. I gotta go. I love to feel the sun on my face and the sand in my toes and that ocean breeze blowing through my hair. That is peace for me. So I tell you all that because I think a lot of people, you've seen my phone that has the beach, right? Let's see. Okay, I have a question I'll have to answer, it looks like. I've talked about it in almost every video I've done since last April, right? People, I think, thought I was joking. I was not joking. I was always going to move to Florida. But I didn't realize it would necessarily be this fast. And life happens and whatnot. Honestly, my Allegan County case, it kind of broke me in some ways. And I want to thank a friend of mine, a wonderful person, Kristen Megan, who saw in me that it was really PTSD that I was experiencing after that whole traumatic experience. Getting physically beat up by law enforcement officers who swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. Having, everyone from the local township clerk to the deputies to the sheriff himself, and then now 5 prosecuting attorneys who have touched the case, 2 district court judges, 1 circuit court judge, and 1 court of appeals panel of 3. For them to think that this case is just no big deal, to think that it's okay what happened, and that they should keep pursuing it, that's a whole nother ballgame. And if they're willing to do it to me when I'm an attorney and they knew I was there in my capacity as an attorney, they're going to do it to you. I'm not even from Allegan County. I was only there to be the attorney for people who are collecting signatures and exercising their constitutionally and statutorily protected rights And, you know, yeah, basically, if they're willing to do it to me, they're going to do it to anyone. And how can I stand for that? I mean, that's literally anyone who's known me longer than 5 minutes knows that I'm going to stand up and do what's right, even if I get the raw end of the deal out of it. Even if I end up in a lawsuit with the city of Belding because I wouldn't stop going to the podium on city council meeting nights to tell the city manager and the city council how many laws had been violated that week and what ways that they could easily change things around so that they could remedy the situation, stop violating people's rights, stop violating the law, and be able to get back to living in small town life. I'm going to do what it takes. So, whether it's battling a case out in federal district court all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, whether it's, running for office as I have, whether it's doing videos, I'm not going to probably get up to as many as I had been doing. I'd been doing 2 videos a day, every single day, when the petition was going on. But I'm gonna be doing a heck of a lot more once I get, things settled down here. So I'm gonna do what it takes so that each and every one of you, you're empowered to go out and fight the good fight, because it can't take one attorney or 2 or 3. It's not going to be, one medical freedom fighter here and one there. Few, of course, I have in mind that I know personally. It's not going to be, one person running one organization like, Tammy with Stand Up, or, Maya speaking on behalf of MVC, or, whatever, right? It's going to take literally everyone doing their part. Knowing your own rights is the first step. So I'm going to continue devoting my life to that. But I know a lot of you have been worried, reaching out to me saying, hey, did you really move to Florida? First of all, I'm going to apologize for this camera angle because I look really ridiculous and kind of scary, and it looks like I have no hair. So I'm not floating in space, and well, that is actually the moon. I was going to joke and say that's not the moon. But I'm not done fighting for Michigan, and you guys need to not be done fighting for Michigan. It's just getting started. So me being in Florida, the biggest thing, the reason why I talked about that case, the Allegan County case, number one, it is still going on. I do have a trial date set for October now, because my first 2 trial dates weren't good enough, I guess. But anyway, as I battle that case, here's what I was thinking. Raise your hand, like I'll see it. If you have heard of someone by the name of Merlena, who owns a bistro. Anybody? If you have heard about her or her struggles, I know a little bit about some of the background stuff. I've been working with her attorney behind the scenes on some aspects, on bouncing around just different ideas. I'm not representing her or fighting the fight in that sense, but I wish I could have. I wish I could have returned her phone call that day that she called me. I want to say it was a Sunday. Sunday right before she got arrested. I think it was a Friday she got arrested. So, I that's going to weigh on me forever that I couldn't call her back before then. But life is what it is. I was literally fighting my own fight and trying to appeal the egregious situation in my own case at the time. But at any rate, look at what happened to her, right? She's a normal person running her business. She's not even out in the world fighting it. I mean, in one sense, she was out there a heck of a lot more than I was, right? Because she's on national news, shows and probably a lot more articles and things written about her than ever will be written about me. So, in one sense, she's out there more. But in another sense, in terms of what she was fighting for, she was just fighting for her own right to be able to just earn a living, right? And the right of her employees to be able to come to work and earn a living. She wasn't trying to single-handedly take down, the governor's orders or, anything of that nature. And yet look what they did to her, right? They're going to come after you. And if you know any of the attorneys, Scott Hagerstrom or, oh my gosh, all the other attorneys have just gone out of my head. I mean, obviously you guys know Rudy Giuliani, and oh my gosh, I can't think of anybody's names. Anyway, the female attorney that was representing Trump at the very beginning and whatever, fighting the election fight, Sydney something. Wow. Anyway, apparently it's been a year. If you've been following any of them, those are out-of-state attorneys, but here in Michigan, it's been happening here to Michigan attorneys too. Any attorneys who have been fighting the election fraud fight, for example, the three lovely women in power in Michigan, spearheaded by Dana Nessel, of course, have been going after these attorneys individually, trying to get them disbarred or censured in some way by the state bar, trying to have the Attorney Grievance Commission come after them because they were fighting the fight, because they were filing the cases to get the investigations, to ask for the audits, to get the truth out there to the people. They're literally being attacked personally by Dana Nessel et al., right? So, and what's happening with Marlena and what has happened, and if you haven't heard of what happened to her the day of her arrest, you need to go and watch one of her videos when she's been describing that. I'm just... Or look at what happened to the Null brothers. Some good Michigan militia guys who most of the Republican Party turned on, even freedom fighters were turning on them, and everybody was like, oh, we condone this, and you can't do that. And Mike Shirkey and Lee Chatfield, who was the Speaker of the House, and the Senate Majority Leader was, of course, Mike Shirkey. Other Republican leaders even were immediately denouncing any, how dare those Null brothers and all those other militia guys, plot to kidnap the governor, as though they didn't have a right to be innocent until proven guilty, right? Well, I won't go into all the details. I don't honestly remember how much of it became public, but let me just say, I wish I could have done more on that too. Because the night that went down, the night those guys were arrested, I was seconds from getting into my car. And Tammy Vrosh and my husband, Mike, were both at the house, and so somebody would have been with Emma, right? But I was about to get in the car, not just because at that point nobody knew where they had been taken or for what, but what law enforcement did to their families that night, their teenage children, their elderly parents, what law enforcement did to at least one of their homes, physically destroying their home long after the arrest had happened. I mean, you just don't do those kinds of things to teenage children. And you don't do anything that was done that night by law enforcement. Let me just put it that way. And I would have gotten in the car. But that was the night that I was finishing my response in the Michigan Supreme Court against the governor's request, that silent request she made to the Michigan Supreme Court saying, oh, you just declared my orders unconstitutional, but please give me another 21 days, please, please. After she had already gone and done a public broadcast, oh, my orders are still in place. Yeah. She knew better. Um, at any rate, I'm glad I did, because by Monday, on October 9th, the court had issued their decision that they weren't going to extend them. And I don't know if my brief had any part in that, but I'd like to think my efforts were not in vain. And I knew I had to write the brief and fight that fight for the whole state. Otherwise, I would have been in that car. I would have been in that car. Because the Null brothers did not deserve what happened to them, and their families were traumatized. And nothing that happened to them should have happened to them. So my point in bringing up Marlena and myself and my daughter and the Null brothers is not to say don't back the blue. I still have a back the blue sticker on my car. I haven't been able to bring myself to wear the Thin Blue Line shirt yet, but I would still stand behind a man like Steve, who was fired by the city of Lowell last summer for saying that the Lowell City Department, that the Lowell Police Department supports the Second Amendment. When a police chief says that, he should get a raise, not fired. I would gladly stand with a man who's fighting for our Constitution in that regard. And, if I saw a law enforcement officer, if I'm driving through some bad area, and I see a law enforcement officer who is, in a bad spot, right, getting the crap beat out of them by some thugs or something, and, I'm certainly going to pull over and call for help. But if my daughter was not with me and I had my gun with me, I'm not a marksman, I'm not an expert with guns, but I tell you what, it holds 30 rounds, my gun does, so, and I have the extra magazine, so I'd have a 60 chances to get the bad guys, right? So, yeah, in a heartbeat, I would stop for law enforcement and help them in that scenario. I would definitely risk my life to help someone who's out there serving and protecting. So don't take my comments the wrong way. But what happened to me, to Marlena, to the Null brothers, to these attorneys in Michigan, it's not that it can't happen anywhere else, but it's happening in just unprecedented, unchecked, situations, right? It's happening in numbers so great that you don't even hear about it, because it's becoming all too commonplace. If you stand up and do the right thing, they're going to come after you. It's just not going to be a secret, right? So, at any rate, I figured if I went ahead and moved to Florida now, then when I continue to do videos, when I continue to fight the fight in court and file the briefs and argue in the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeals or whatever, they have a lot less ammo on their side, essentially, to try to stop me, right? So that was definitely not a 3-minute explanation. But there you go. The next time people ask or they freak out that I moved to Florida and they think that I'm done fighting for Michigan, Lori can replay that. So if for nothing else, take that last little bit there that I was talking about, the why I needed to move now piece, aside from the fact it was always my plan. Take all those stories about all those other people and remember to think about those people and pray for them and fight for them. And if you have a chance to support Marlena, or an attorney like Scott Hagerstrom who's been fighting the fight, or the Knoll brothers, or anybody that's been fighting the fight in some way, support them. Put yourself on the line to support them, because you would want them to stand up and do the same thing for you. So at any rate, let's see. I'm sure I have tons of questions. Okay. Okay. Hospitals and doctor refuse care. Okay. There is a question about hospitals and care with a mask. If you give me your specific question, and it's a question about the Constitution or something in that scope, I will definitely answer it. But that is so wide open, I can't possibly know what is being asked there. That was somebody on YouTube. Okay. Amy on Facebook asks, does a union contract have more authority than a university policy? So, generally speaking, yes. A contract would always have more authority than a policy. But sometimes in your employment contract, you might have signed something saying that you are agreeing to always abide by a policy of your employer. And if that's the case, then the policy is essentially as good as a contract. Hopefully that made sense. I was going to use an analogy, but it's going to open a can of worms because it's about the masks and CDC and school districts, so I'm not going to use that analogy. But I'll just repeat it one more time, and hopefully it'll be good and clear. If you have a contract with someone or an organization or your employer, that contract would supersede any kind of policy that the employer may have. But keep in mind that as part of your employment, if you have ever signed something acknowledging or agreeing to the fact that you will, as a condition of employment, abide by all policies of that employer, then essentially that policy is as good as a contract. It's as binding as the contract itself. So without knowing any specifics, I would say you got to keep in mind there is that scenario. But if you're talking about that has never happened, there's never been an agreement where any employee has ever had to agree to follow policy, and it's just simply that, it's just simply a policy, then your union contract, your contract with your union and your union's then contract with your employer would override any kind of policy that they have. So unless the union contract itself has some sort of carve out for these certain employees or all employees covered by this union contract will follow all the policies of the employer or something of that nature. So keep in mind that may be the case. But where that hasn't happened, your contract supersedes any policy. What happens if you get fired for not getting the vaccine? I was trying to figure out which word to use because I'm sure this video is going to get censored, but shoot, if that's the only thing they're going to take issue with, well, okay. By the way, here's a reminder, especially to those of you watching on YouTube right now, please make sure to follow us on our website, the updates page. It's the second tab. That's where we try to post pretty much everything we're posting to YouTube or Facebook or whatever we're trying to also post there. If YouTube gives me that third strike, one more strike, then I won't, I won't be able to continue to do videos on there. And I don't want you to feel like you're without or that I don't have videos. We do have a Rumble channel, Restore Freedom. It'll have the same logo and whatnot. I'm sure Lori's already posted. If she hasn't already, I'm sure she's in the midst of typing about it right now to give you the link. I want to say our website we changed a few months ago too, so that when you click on the link where it used to be a link to YouTube, it's now a link to Rumble. And we do have that second YouTube channel, but out of 10,000 people, 100 people moved over to the new channel. So, which is probably fine because those of you who were going to give up on YouTube, it's rightfully so. They've already put, I think, 1 strike on that channel, and then I have 2 on this current channel, the older channel. And then Facebook, at some point I'm sure they're going to censor me or stop me or whatever. So just make sure to go to Rumble and follow us on Rumble, and go to our website, restorefreedomkh.com. Go to that updates page and you'll be able to see our updates. We redid our business cards, and we'll be posting those around in places and sending them out. If anybody is interested, in fact, in helping to distribute our business cards at your local Patriot meetings or, at big events or festivals that are happening across the state, or, just with neighbors or friends or family, reach out to us. Shoot us an email. The email is on the website, or you can I want to say it's contact@restorefreedomkh.com. Let us know, and we will connect you with some business cards because we want to get the word out. The reason why I bring those up is because we literally had just redesigned them to have, the links for Rumble and all those other things that we were going to keep, and we pared down because we were posting on a variety of different places, and we put Parler on there, and right after they went to print, Parler started having issues, and I haven't been able to post on Parler ever since. So, it is what it is. Let's see, did I answer? Okay. So what happens if you get fired? Well, look at your contract. Do you have a contract with your employer? Do you have a union contract? Do you have any kind of, is your position one that's covered by Michigan law that prohibits you from getting fired for, certain reasons? Look at all those kinds of things. And, when I say look up Michigan law, literally go to the legislature's website. You can do, there's a link for basic MCL search, Michigan compiled law search. You can put in a keyword. Sometimes that can give you what you're looking for. You probably, if it's more than one word, you might want to use quotation marks around it. Otherwise, you might want to just look at, there's a chapter index. You can look through the chapters. It will take you time. It takes me hours to comb through. But comb through those chapters and figure out, which topic might be most relevant to your particular employer, or whatever service it may be, and look through and see if there's a law that's specific to how people can be terminated or what they can be terminated for, and that's honestly going to be your best bet initially. When it comes to, the bigger fight, can you be fired for not getting the special new gene therapy that they're trying to mandate? Constitutionally, no, absolutely not, because every single one of us has the right to that bodily integrity, right? We, from the time that God forms us in our mother's womb, have the right to bodily integrity, and once we're able to make decisions for ourselves, we have the right to bodily autonomy, and we are not to be required to experiment on our bodies in any way. I talked about this in depth in some of the videos when it came to, oh gosh, what bill was that? I don't think it was 5672. Might have been House Bill 5672 last year. The one that Jack O'Malley and, gosh, who else? Well, all the state reps voted in favor of it except for two, and the two that voted against it actually voted against it because they thought an employer should be able to force you to get an injection of a microchip as a condition of employment. Anyway, but those like Jack O'Malley decided to run off at the mouth on their videos, personally attacking me, instead of actually talking about the substance of the matter. Although the one thing that Jack O'Malley did say was that he thought that everybody should be, it's basically just, it's okay because, it's basically going to be used for people like criminals. And obviously criminals should be forced, it's okay to force them to have an injection of a microchip, as a condition of release. Because people with a criminal record are no longer human beings? What? Anyway, so, and I don't say that just as a public defender, I say that as a person who understands that God made all of us, and our rights come from God. And the Constitution clearly recognizes that. And you have the Ninth Amendment right in our U.S. Constitution, or Article 1, Section 23 right in our state constitution, to your unenumerated rights, that the government's job is to be there to protect all of our rights, but even those that we don't specifically identify and spell out. Everything, every right that's given to us by God, they have to protect. That's literally what their job description is. If you're in government, that's your job description. So no employer, no private organization, no public organization can force you to have microchipping or a vaccine or to wear a mask or to do anything, any kind of medical device or medical procedure in any way, medical treatment. They can't force you to do that and still be good with the Constitution. Now, does Michigan or most other states, does Michigan have a state law that allows the government to violate your God-given liberties in that regard? Heck yeah, they do. They got a whole bunch. That's why I had the constitutional amendment for Restore Freedom last year, because just getting rid of that one state law wasn't going to do anything. Getting rid of the public health code, I want to say it's 333.2253. Man, it's been too long since I've quoted that statute. Anyway, the statutes that they're using right now, that the local health department and the state health department have been using for their orders and things since October of well, really they've had them in place since April of last year. Even though the state reps were fighting me saying, oh, no, they're not going to weaponize those. Nobody pays attention to those orders. We're fine. Right. And you state reps that were having those arguments with me via Facebook Messenger, you know who I'm talking about. At any rate, we have laws on the books they haven't even really started tapping into yet. So whether we're talking about the ones that they're using, the 333.2253, I want to say the other one's like 2243 or something of that nature, or whether we're talking about the ones that Kent County was using at the very beginning of the COVID stuff, and they were asking for warrants to be issued, literally arrest warrants to be issued, where a law enforcement officer or a health department official could see you on the street, see you cough or sneeze or something, and then go, you know what, they're exhibiting symptoms of COVID. We better go arrest them and test them. We'll observe them and then test them and then diagnose them and then treat them. Oh, and by the way, this state law would, they'd have up to 6 days where you wouldn't have access to an attorney or a judge, a hearing, nothing. Up to 6 days. That's insane. That law, nobody else has been talking about, nobody else has been touching. That's just one little tiny piece of the public health code that's got to go. So, is it legal for employers to fire you if you don't get the vaccine or wear a mask or whatever? Yeah, there's enough dumb laws on the books in Michigan that they could probably find one that covers their scenario. Certainly with that really stupid one they passed that every single state rep voted for. Gosh, what one was that? That might have been 6032, House Bill 6032, I think, where it said that employers, well, you could be sued $5,000 for each time that you violate, this law. And basically that includes if any of your employers decide to snitch on you to any local health department or other kind of governmental agency and claim that you're not following the appropriate COVID rules and restrictions applicable to your business, that you can't retaliate against them. If you do, then you could be sued for liquidated damages, statutory damages. Really? You wouldn't do that for an employee that was going to be forced to have a microchip as a condition of employment, but you're going to build that into an employee being able to sue because they want to be able to tattletale to the government about following orders that aren't even constitutional? Anyway, and I've heard stories about why our legislators voted for that, the Republican ones. But at any rate, there are laws out there, is my point. There are laws out there that allow them to do that, but the laws are not constitutional. So what happens if you are fired because of one of those situations, what happens is up to you. Do you want to make it public? Do you want to talk about, pull the heartstrings of the public, go and, get the media to cover your story and tell them how that job loss is impacting your family, or how you literally couldn't wear that mask or take that vaccine, how you were contraindicated because you're immunocompromised, or because your physician advised you against it, or one of our leading immunologists in our country, let alone our state, Dr. Martin Dubrovic, has been advising people to hold off on taking this experimental gene therapy. Or all the information coming out from people like Kristen Megan and others who are experts on PPE, telling people, yeah, following these mandates this way is not safe or healthy. So yeah, there are legal remedies you can take, but a lawsuit is going to be long and it is going to be costly. Now, in this climate, people are willing to donate when you want to fight those fights in court. So if you're willing to fight that fight and be in it for the long haul, just know that it's not going to be about the case. So for example, when I sued the city of Belding, primarily the city manager, who was violating, she actually wasn't violating my rights initially. She was violating the rights of everybody else in the city, and I was speaking up at city council meetings. Then, when I wouldn't shut up at the city council meetings, then she started coming after me. I was actually the first on her list of the people she was going to start coming after. Well, yeah, lucky for those other people, she started with me and she ended with me. But anyway, I ended up suing her in her official and individual capacities in the local Ionia County Circuit Court. And her overpriced attorney that was paid with my tax dollars moved the case unilaterally, without notice to me, over to federal district court. Why? I don't know, because he likes to pay for parking? But primarily, I'm thinking because it was a scare tactic. He's like, she mentioned, the U.S. Constitution. I'm like, oh, okay, dude, that's great. But I'm licensed here too, so it's not going to scare me. And then I could file motions, and there's no motion filing fee in federal district court. So, unlike state court where you have to pay $20. at any rate, the point is, when I took that case to court, I was thinking it was going to be kept to the basics, right? An attorney would come in and represent the city, and I, as an attorney, could talk to that attorney, and it would be civil discourse. No. He was pulling crap like threatening every single person that ever supported me in any way, and literally told me, I have an email. I have it in an email. He said that if I didn't drop this nonsense of a lawsuit, and whatever else he wanted me to do, that he was going to, quote, come after me, go after every single person who has ever supported me in any way. He was going to drag them into depositions, and he was going to harass them and do whatever, right? That's insane. He also wanted to serve my husband with a subpoena for depositions. Well, he made sure that my husband was served by 10 o'clock at night, where one of my kids answers the door, gets freaked out because this guy is identifying himself as law enforcement. He was not. He was a process server, and that was it. And basically is like throwing this packet of papers at my kids to give to my husband, and considered him served, by the way, for depositions that legally couldn't happen, because he wanted to have the depositions done at none other than the city manager's father's law firm, which was in the next county. Can't do that for a variety of reasons, as I'm sure you can guess. Not to mention that those depositions and the substance or the procedures thereof actually led to me having to argue about the legalities of me nursing my youngest child, if you can imagine that, because I said we can't do depositions for 8 hours at a time because I was nursing. I mean, I literally had to argue in federal court about pumping or breastfeeding my daughter. Anyway, things get personal. So if you're willing to take on the fight, don't think you're going to be able to leave that at the office, so to speak, or your attorney's office, and that they're not going to try to twist it and make it nasty and make it real for you. It's going to get even more real. But that's why I asked the question today. What are you willing to do to fight for your freedom? It's your freedom. Okay. Hopefully that's Lori blowing up my phone. Let's see. I think I'm getting all these. I'm not sure what, I don't know if this is Tamara, or I'm probably pronouncing it wrong either way, on Facebook. Her question is, so what about teachers' contracts? Can we write in except vaccines or gene therapy? I don't know exactly where you would be writing that in, but let me just put it this way. Any kind of, you can tell I'm in Florida and that I'm melting. I mean, I can tell. Anyway, any kind of contract, you can't be forced into signing, otherwise it's considered duress. If you have something in there, I do it all the time, wherever I go. If there's something in there I don't like, I'm going to cross it off and put my initials next to it. And people might look at me like, this was a carnival ride. You just did, hey, it is what it is. But in all seriousness, whether it's a carnival ride, whether it's, to buy a car, or, as a condition of employment, or whatever the situation, you have a right as the party to the contract to sign it as it is, to, propose a change or what have you. And especially where they're only looking for one side's signature on that. I mean, yeah, if they're asking you especially about your own personal, something as personal and invasive as, do you consent to any kind of medical treatment or something of that nature? Heck yeah. In fact, with my husband's new job, there was something in there that sounded like they were going to require the COVID test to be done as a condition of employment. And of course, he has his attorney read all that stuff ahead of time. And I was like, whoa. So, you have a right to if you have something in paper or on a PDF or whatever, and you're going to modify that, you have a right to do that and then sign your name to it. I don't know exactly in what context we're talking about, so it could be a scenario where you're being told take it or leave it as it is, and then you have to make that decision. Or basically they're telling you we're rejecting any kind of modifications to this whatsoever. Our offer of employment or whatever is conditioned upon you accepting all of these terms. Then that's a sticky situation. Definitely you want to be the one. Let me put it this way. You might have thought initially, and many of us have throughout the years, well, if I think I might get fired, I'm going to just resign because I could save face. No, if they think they're going to fire you because you won't inject yourself with experimental gene therapy or because you need to breathe oxygen while you're working there 8 hours a day, let them fire you for that. Don't do them the favor of quitting. Oh, no, 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 no. Let them have to do the heavy lifting on that. But it also depends on how far you want that situation to go. Don't all states have, this is from David on Facebook, don't all states have laws about unqualified people practicing medicine? Well, I had obtained my original licensure in the state of Minnesota. I'm licensed in Michigan in state court. I'm licensed in 2 federal district courts and the Saginaw Chippewa tribe in the Mount Pleasant area. I'm licensed in the U.S. Supreme Court, but although I grew up in Florida and I've done Katrina relief work in the great state of Louisiana, I cannot say that I am licensed in any of those states, so I would not want to commit malpractice, so to speak, or to violate each state's laws on not practicing law if you don't have the proper license or background to do so. But I would think in general that based on what I know, I would anticipate that every single state has a law prohibiting the unauthorized practice of law as well as the unauthorized practice of medicine. And as far as medicine, that one gets a little bit stickier because with attorneys, it's typically you're acting as an attorney or you're not, right? But with medicine, there's so many different types of medical degrees and accolades or levels that I don't even know them all or what the difference is. And I've asked many times and I've been told and I just can't keep it straight. I have a lot of friends who are nurses, for example. I can't keep straight what the difference between an RN, a registered nurse, I think it is, and an LPN, a licensed practical nurse, I believe is what that stands for, but I don't know what that means. I don't know on the hierarchy where one sits and where the other sits. You have surgical techs, and you have x-ray techs, and you have, all kinds of people in those fields that I don't know, the difference in those roles, or a physician's assistant versus a full-blown MD or DO. I don't know. But if the question is geared toward, like a health department, official being the one to, wow, yawn during a video. I'm sorry. I'm so boring. I'm putting myself to sleep. If the question from David on Facebook was being asked about basically like a local health department public official making the call on forcing, masks on children at school or something, and that particular official is not even a practicing doctor, that would be an example, I would think, of where they're trying to practice medicine and they're trying to mandate, not even recommend, but to mandate a medical procedure or device for thousands of children. That would be bad. Okay, let me see. Do I have any others? I do not see any others. Wow, that's cool. I've probably been talking long enough. I've put everyone else to sleep. Oh, this is not my longest video by far. So me see. Let me give Lori a chance to wake up and see if there's something she wanted to text me. A person who defends himself in court as an attorney has a fool for a client. That's funny, considering I guarantee you there's not a single attorney out there who knows any of the laws involved in my case any better than me. Guarantee you, hands down. And I'm not an attorney to be all like, oh, I'm the best attorney out there. Because there's a lot of really smart attorneys. I'm the only one in the entire state that knows all those laws and constitutional provisions frontward and backward. Every single court rule. I've cited thousands at this point in the various briefs. And no other attorney knows them off the top of their head, so that the second the prosecuting attorney runs her mouth and wants to argue something, I could be like, well, objection, and then state what it is. Now, is that particular judge going to side with me? Depends on the situation. He has in some instances so far, but in most, he has not. Follow the law, but guess what? At least I've made the record for the appeal. So, basically, our society has been screwed over because of idiots who think that just because you have an attorney, that attorney is going to fix all your problems. And I'm directing this very angry comment to the person who thinks that I'm an idiot for representing myself in my case. For those people who have thought for far too long, just because you have an attorney, everything's going to turn out fine, or that attorney can guarantee you some sort of result, or even if you have the law and the facts on your side that you're somehow guaranteed to win, that's not true at all. Unfortunately, there's a lot of attorneys, I'd say most attorneys, that just don't care as much about their cases as their clients do. It's not their life. It's not their divorce or their bankruptcy or their estate matter or, their guardianship situation or their child protection proceeding or their criminal case. They're just being an attorney. They're just doing a job 9 to 5 and they're there to get a paycheck, and it is what it is. Far too many attorneys are like that. Or even worse, attorneys will bargain away their client's position or come up with agreements that the clients never even agreed to. I left my very first law firm that I was a licensed practicing attorney for. I left as a single mom, going out, not sure if there was going to be something else. I took that leap, not sure that what I would land on, knowing I had a mouth to feed besides my own. I had a house, a mortgage payment, and if you were watching the video 3 hours ago when I started this one, you heard that at that point my family was nowhere around. My family was in Florida and they were in Michigan. And I had no family in Minnesota. And that's where I was, in Minnesota, as an attorney. But I could not stand working for a man who would go into, a terrible custody situation. And I'll just say Jennifer C. I won't say your last name, but from Minnesota. Can't remember what county your case was, if it was in Watonwan County or anyway, Blue Earth, or which county it was, but I can certainly remember going to court that day and how my boss at the time would go in and have one of those meetings in chambers or meetings with another attorney and would agree to, oh, sure, yeah, we'll do that for custody. Oh, yeah, we'll do that with the house. We'll do this with, parenting time. And it was absolutely nothing that the client would agree with. And then go out to the client and say, well, yep, so the judge is going to do this. This is what we're doing. We have no choice. When that happened, I even remember what outfit I was wearing to court that day. That day was burned in my mind. When that happened, I knew that day I was done. I was done working for attorneys that would sell out their clients. And unfortunately, there are far too many attorneys out there that sell out their clients. So for those people who want to spout off like they think they know something, Mr. Alexander, who think that just because I'm representing myself, that means I have an idiot for a client, keep in mind the reason why I'm trying to empower the people is because attorneys clearly can't be relied upon to fix this situation. Where have all the attorneys been this whole time that I've been fighting for freedom? Where are all the attorneys? I have thousands of potential clients that contact me regularly. And I've been telling people for over a year now, I'm not taking on any cases myself, and yet people still contact me, even if it's just to say, can you just refer me to somebody? So you'd think if there are attorneys willing to earn money while fighting for freedom, that they would contact me and be like, hey, I'm willing to take on this kind of case. Can you give out my number? I'm just saying that the attorneys that are worth the thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars of their law school education, they're rare. So maybe we shouldn't be so judgmental, not just about me, but anybody in the situation. It could be a non-attorney who's representing him or herself in court. And depending on the scenario, I could see, especially in this climate, that a lay person could do much better understanding the Constitution and the law than a lot of the attorneys. Anyway. Well, Mr. Alexander, sorry that I took that so personally, but like I said, I do think that most average individuals who are not attorneys, seriously, and I'm not being a smartass when I say this, most average citizens could do a better job representing their situation in court than a lot of these attorneys. Because the attorneys don't get it. The attorneys think you start with whatever the government wants to do, and then you come up from there and you look at what laws might be applicable, and then you maybe might talk about some constitutional provisions, and that's backwards. You start with what the Constitution says, and if it allows the government action, or even the private sector action, then you can go and look at, okay, so what law might support that, and then from there, what local order or whatever mandate might go from there. But if you don't understand that the Constitution is the basis of everything, and that in this country, if it's not constitutional, it doesn't get to stand, then you're not going to do anybody any good. And unfortunately, a vast majority of attorneys are stuck in that, either because they don't intellectually understand that, because law school brainwashed them or whatever, or because they're stuck in the position where, well, they know that's the right way to do it, or they know that's what should happen, but they are convinced that, well, you just got to go with the flow, and that's not the way things are done, and it's all about like the good old boy network, and you're going to tick off the wrong people or whatever. So in that sense, do you really want an attorney like that? Even if you're Joe Blow who doesn't have a law degree, do you really think you'd fare better with that vast majority of attorneys that are in that attorney pool, if you go through the phone book or whatever? Or do you think you'd fare better if you read the Constitution and you read the laws involved and you did the research and you got some pointers on how things worked in a courtroom, where you sat for a whole week straight prior to your case and you looked at how that judge in that county handled hearing after hearing after hearing? And you looked, because they're public records, you looked at what kinds of documents were filed and how things were put together. I don't think it's going to take a law degree to be able to put together a defense for yourself in that situation. But again, that's just my opinion. So, oh, I know it wasn't your quote. I understand that. And it was from a very famous attorney. But it is nonetheless something I take issue with. The most targeted citizen. Poor folks are targeted by the corrupt government and don't have the money that great attorneys require. Judges don't respect a layperson representing themselves and rip them apart. It depends on the courtroom, but I can tell you that all too many times judges don't respect what an attorney would do either, necessarily. For example, when I walked into Michigan courts, in my first year of practice here in Michigan, and my P number, my bar number, was pretty high, meaning it was a very recent number. The other attorneys in the cases I was going up against and the judges and who, they would look at my P number and go like, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And I'm fine with that. If people want to underestimate me and then they get what's coming to them, but I'm going to show up to the trial or the hearing or whatever it is, and I'm going to know the law frontward and backward, and I'm going to know the case, and I'm going to know the facts, and I'm going to know where in the 3,000 pages that particular piece of evidence is, because that's how my mind works, and that's how hard I work. That's just, at any rate, the underestimating me is fine in that sense, but in terms of walking into that scenario and having respect just because I'm an attorney, that hasn't happened, especially when I started off young. I mean, I graduated from law school driving my, minivan and, owning my own first real house with a mortgage and all that. And law school, I owned a trailer. So anyway, different story. I walked in as an attorney, especially when I moved to Michigan. I want to say I was 24, and I opened my own law firm, and I was licensed in 5 jurisdictions, four at the time, I think. And if you looked at what I had done and what I had built for myself at that point, nobody would look at me and go, oh yeah, she's obviously, she's 24. No, people would think I was well into my 30s, sometimes 40s. And of course, I'd be terribly insulted at 24 years old that people would think I'm mid 40s. But, for those people that would just start with my age or my P number and go from there, and they would go, oh, well, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Or even once they saw that I had the experience behind me, but I walk in, I'm a female and I'm blonde. Honestly, I've been discriminated against because I'm white, female, and a blonde. Those 3 things have had me discriminated against more times than I can even count. So, at any rate, the disrespect that I have encountered from opposing counsel, from judges, I literally had a judge tell me in one case, we were talking about, it was actually a child support hearing, and the Michigan child support guidelines had just changed. When was that? 2008? That might have been 2013. And the guidelines had just changed for the first time in a long time. I want to say 2008 was the last time they had changed, right? So people were used to the old guidelines. And this case was happening, the hearing was happening in January. And the law, or the guidelines, the rules, had just changed in January 1st of that year. And I was introducing evidence on testimony about, I want to say it had something to do with the overtime of the dad. And, my client, the mom, had been horribly abused by this guy. And when she decided to leave him, he cut her off from everything. I mean, she got not one penny to live on, to eat, to feed the kids, to, put a bed in a bedroom and, make a home for them. So, I mean, obviously I gave her the beds that I had, the extra beds that I had, and help, to try to physically help her get situated. But I was going to argue the best I could for the most child support because the dude made a lot of money and she was starting from square one. He had never let her hardly work outside of the home. And here she was having to get a full-time job and start all over. So at any rate, I was arguing about, introducing evidence, questioning him on his overtime, I think is what it was. And the judge, I get an objection from the other counsel. It's kind of funny thinking about who that was, considering the lawsuits that later came. But anyway, someone who looked at me like I was a little Barbie doll and didn't know anything. And the judge literally looked at me and said, he was barking at me for something. I mean, like being really rude. And I just kept being persistent about it. And he was about to put me in contempt. And I said, Your Honor, if I may, my client has a right to present this evidence because the child support guidelines just changed. I have a copy right here. If you'd like to see, I can let you see my copy. They changed 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And this new rule change is in, whatever, this rule and this sub rule and whatever. He literally takes a recess. He's gone, I want to say it was like 45 minutes. He comes back to tell me, of course, he doesn't come on the record and say that I was right, but in a roundabout way, he says that I'm right, only to round it back up with, but counsel, you're on a short leash. Now, in what world is that going to be acceptable behavior? To talk to me like I'm literally a dog in the courtroom, that I had the information correct and accurate, and I was respectful in my presentation, and I was zealously fighting for my client appropriately, and the fact that I was correct and he as a judge was not somehow gave him the authority to talk to me like I was less than a human. Anyway, I'm just telling you, for the person who is on YouTube as the most targeted citizen and some of these other individuals, I can only see one comment at a time, so I apologize if it ends up being out of context. But I'm just telling you, just being an attorney does not mean you are going to get the respect that you should, and it doesn't mean you're going to get the results that people want. You have to be willing to own who you are in that courtroom, no matter if you have a JD behind your name or not. And you have to know what you're talking about. You have to know the laws and the court rules, and how to maintain your cool when you are thoroughly disrespected, as I have been on numerous occasions. Neither here nor there, I guess. So, okay. What do you think about Kevin Skinner's announcement last week? His video was brought back up on Us Against Media. Do you support some? Honestly, I don't know what Kevin's, maybe Lori will fill me in. And I'll scroll to the bottom here. I don't know what Kevin Skinner, I think either I blocked him or he blocked me last year on Facebook. I don't know. But the last videos that I knew about were like a year ago, okay, from him. And they weren't nice and they weren't accurate. So I don't know if that addresses your question. I don't know if Lori has, that was addressing Lisa's question on Facebook. And do I support Stand Up Michigan? Let's see. Oh, I will say that I do believe that to be the case. As someone on YouTube points out, that Kevin Skinner said he was squeezed out when Ron Armstrong came into Stand Up Michigan. Based on what Kevin told me, well, over a year ago, Um, it would be consistent. I mean, in that sense, it would sound like he's telling the truth. I don't know if that really changes anything. Let me see if Lori has. It's a video about Stand Up Michigan. I don't know if it's a new video. I guess I'm confused. At any rate, do I support Stand Up Michigan? It's not that I think that automatically just because Stand Up or Tammy or whatever, Ron, is involved in something that it automatically is awful or terrible. That's not the case. So, for example, they have done a lot as an organization, from my understanding. They have done a lot to promote or support, at least, a lot of the things that Kristen Megan has been getting out there. That when Tammy Clark and Kristen Megan have been going and traveling around and giving information just as them, not necessarily as stand up, that they have been able to provide information that people have needed to hear about PPE, and they're getting information. They are giving information to people in a variety of fields and areas of expertise, connecting people in that sense to things that they need to know. And I think that's amazing and good. Okay. I think Tammy's heart is in the right place. I think that just based on my own experience, there's been some things I've seen towards me personally. I don't even think she sees it when she's doing it. When, for example, when she was, before Rick Martin was arrested, she was talking about on a mutual friend of ours on Facebook. She was talking about, the post wasn't anything about Stand Up Michigan. No, it was about Stand Up Michigan. But it wasn't anything about me. It wasn't anything. It was just like something about Marlena, I think is what it was. And Stand Up's involvement or something like that. I don't know. It was benign. She took it very personally and was literally attacking a few people on that post. Bethany Heikela and I don't even remember who else, but there was a lot of back and forth, and she was very defensive. I didn't even get into anything with that. I commented on another thread when I saw her saying that Rick Martin had single-handedly done more for any Michigan business person or every Michigan business than any licensed attorney or bar attorney in the entire state of Michigan. And I just said, any attorney? And she said, yes. I mean, knowing who she was answering. And then I didn't go back and forth with her on it. I didn't argue with her. I did tell her that I was concerned about some of the information that he had been providing to people because it wasn't accurate and he hadn't been reading the law. And then she turned it on me to say that I was, taking it personally and blah, 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 whatever. Point is, I know she did not intend to make it a personal attack on me in that moment. I know she did not intend for it to come out the way that it really came out, but it came out with such disdain and disrespect for everything that I've been working on, let alone other attorneys that I may not agree with them 100% on things, but they have been doing things to fight for freedom. Like Dave Kallman with the Great Lakes Justice Center, which I was a part of myself until COVID started. I don't like some of the advice that he's been giving to people about, well, you got to follow private companies in their mandates because they can do that. No, they can't. But he has done a lot for people. And, in fighting the fight for Carl Menke the way that he did, that was huge. So to say that no other bar attorney has done anything for the people of Michigan or for business owners of Michigan, I think is a total load of crap. But again, I don't think she meant it. So, I don't know. I don't like how Stand Up was. There's just a few things that Restore Freedom we were working on having ourselves. I was creating a Restore Freedom TV network that was like the Blaze Network, and I had told some people about it. I'd done a little bit on videos about it. I had gotten a whole lineup of experts in a variety of fields that were going to talk about things. And we were having some issues with the technical side because one of the people, for example, was Kristen Megan, and she had just been like shut down on YouTube and Facebook, like all in that same, few days that I'm like really gearing to do this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? I'm not going to have a channel without somebody like her. She's exactly who we need on there. And if they're going to block her, they're going to block all these other people that I have because they're all going to tell the truth too. So we were struggling with trying to figure out, okay, if she's on Brighteon and this one's on YouTube and that person's on Rumble or whatever, how are we going to integrate those? And Tammy and Ron and Stand Up, they said several times to me, oh, yep, we're working on our version of the Blaze Network, and it's going to be this really cool thing, and we're doing the social media thing, and we're doing this. We've created a social media network, and we were creating this TV network, and we were doing all these other things. And when Stand Up said they were going to do something, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not in the TV industry. That's not my strong suit, and we've had no one step up in our organization that like wanted to take the charge and like lead it and do something with that. I'm like, great. Are you guys really going to do this? They're like, oh, yep. We're already, light years ahead on the technology and everything. I said, great. I'll step back. I won't do it. And then 2 months would go by and I'm like, hey, just want to check in. Are you guys still going to do this? Yep. We're so close. We're so close. I honestly don't know if they ever launched it because I stopped checking in with them about it. But that was really upsetting to me because if I would have known that they were going to not have it air or not have it go live, I mean, they were even talking to the same people, not every single person, but quite a few of the same exact people that I had lined up to be on my network. They were telling people that they were having them on their network. And when I was reaching out going, oh, hey, cool, I heard you're going to be on the Stand Up Michigan's network, they were like, no, I never said I would do that. That was disconcerting to me. So, again, I think the intention was there. I think the intention to do good was there. I'm not sure where it fell apart, but that's just my experience with them. And I heard, about the recent issue in Lansing and saying that it was one event and not two, and then telling people, they could go ahead and leave when the next event was about to start. That's not cool. I mean, whether you think it's one thing if you disagree with, I don't know. I don't know that I would ever go so far as to say there is just no other event you can go home, even if it was an event after mine that was talking about how government control is great and, Whitmer needs to be reelected or something. Obviously, I'm not going to say to people, there's this really great rally right after ours. Check it out, stick around for that. I would probably address it by saying, hey, there's this thing coming up next. A few of you might want to stick around and see what the other side has to say, something. But to act like it's not there, I don't know. Okay, I'm not getting yelled at by anybody that I've... Okay, one thing I really want to say, because I've had several messages come through while I'm doing this video. I cannot read Facebook messages. I can't see them. And in fact, I can only see them at the time. So that reminds me, I think I have to reach back out to my sister. My own sister sent me, she tried to call one day and I was in a meeting or something. And then she sent a Facebook message, and only recently has my phone even showed me as much as it does on the drop-down notifications. And it said, my sister, Cami Alexander, sent me a Facebook message. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I can't open it, but anyway, I tried. It doesn't do anything. It literally takes me to a white screen, if I'm lucky, if it even takes me to any screen whatsoever. So I don't know if just more people are messaging me on Facebook now than they did before, or, I mean, my Facebook Messenger was so broken I never even got notifications since last May. It's only been in the last couple weeks that I've even gotten those notifications, and they don't stick around. I had that as my, I left it in my drop down notifications. I didn't, oh, that's right. I didn't click on that one. I was waiting to click on that one until I was ready to respond to her, and I was going to send her a text. Hey, I can't see your message. What's up? Anyway, it disappeared. It's like as soon as another person messages me, it boots out that notification, and I don't see what was there before. So if I don't see it right when you send me a message, or if somebody else, is sending a message right when you're sending one, I'm not going to see both notifications. But in any event, I don't even see the text of what you send. It literally, sometimes I get a notification, check this out. It literally says, I wonder if I remember this right. Too bad my husband's not up here. It'll literally say sometimes, Facebook, and it'll say Messenger sent a message. How is Messenger sending me a message? And what is the message? And why can I not read it? So please, whatever you do, do not send me Facebook messages, because you're going to think I'm ignoring you, and I'm not. I literally can't read them. I'm sure there's, 100,000 messages in there by now. I have not been able to open or read any Facebook messages in Messenger since about middle of May 2020. So if you've sent me anything in the last, what would that be, 15 months on Facebook Messenger, I have no idea about it. Not at all. Okay. So I'm just trying to see if there's any last questions. I don't see any. I think my phone's malfunctioning a little bit. Oh, no, there it goes. Okay. So there were some things I wanted to talk about. One thing was to answer constitutional questions. We actually didn't have a ton of that. I mean, we had some questions. It's honestly the same questions you've been getting recently, but they're not necessarily constitutional. But I did answer all of those that I saw. I wanted to tell you guys, it's funny, I didn't realize what cup I had. My Tropical Vibes Only, where I am, and that I do live down here now, but I haven't stopped the fight for freedom. And I wanted to give you guys a little bit of, tools on how to, what can you do. We've talked about it a little bit in this very long video now. I'm going to recap just to say, be involved by making phone calls. First of all, stay involved. Sign up for all those annoying newsletters that your local health department, your county commissioners, or city managers, or whomever, school boards, any newsletter that you can sign up for it, especially if it's one that you don't agree with what they're doing. Then read all the garbage that they send you, so when they're making it public that they've made a decision or they're doing something. And then go to the meetings. Go to every meeting possible that you can and look them in the eye. Every single person that's up on that, if it's a board meeting, if you're going to your local township board meeting or your county commissioners meeting, I don't care how high and mighty they might seem or how intimidating it might feel for you. Walk in that room like you own it, like you're a citizen of these United States, that you are a gift from God, and you have a right to be there like any other person does, because you do. And look each of them in the eye. Smile when you walk in. And then if they start to make some votes or say some comments that are clearly like they've never read the Constitution, or they don't care what the law says, or about the rights of people that are created in God's image, if they don't care about any of that, look them in the eye again. And they'll feel you're glaring at them. And they'll eventually make eye contact. But even if they don't, they will know that you are looking at them. And it doesn't have to be where you're being nasty. but let them know you're there and you're watching. And it doesn't matter what your profession is. It doesn't matter if you have to drag your kids with you because you're a single parent, or the other parent works the night shift or something. Go there, be who you are, be comfortable in your own skin, and know the Constitution, know your rights. If nothing else, before any meeting, try to read. It'd probably take you, I don't know, 7 minutes to read Article 1 of our state constitution. Just read that. Just read Article 1 of our state constitution. Even if you've read it before, even if you've read it 10,000 times before. It's 27 articles, but it's not much more than 27 sentences, really. A lot of the provisions are like 1 sentence long. And they're not all long sentences either. It's not like one of my videos. So before you go into one of those situations, before you go to write a letter to your local representative, before you go to speak or even just be present at a school board meeting or a city council meeting, read Article 1 of our state constitution, of the Michigan Constitution, and just have it familiar, have it in front of you, have some notes or, some portions highlighted, and pay attention to what they're doing. And seriously, make eye contact. If for nothing else, make eye contact with them. If they're doing something good, if they're saying something correct, if they look like the most boring person in the world, but they are voting all the right freedom voting ways that they should be, smile at them. When they vote like that, just make eye contact and give them the nod and smile at them. Seriously. It was hard sometimes being a Georgetown Township trustee where, you're up there. I mean, it was hard for a variety of reasons at times, but where you're sitting up there and you're saying something that at times I was the only person that voted a certain way, or I was one of 2. If I got lucky, 3 or 4 out of 7, and we finally get a majority on an issue. But there are many times that I was going up against the superintendent and the assistant superintendent, and then all the other board members, and it seemed like the entire crowd. And I'm like, do I even bother? Like, how much of this fight do I make? Am I representing the people by pursuing this point? And I was glad that I would stick with it, because on almost any topic, in the end, eventually someone would say something. Like, they would come up and they would say, and it might be somebody that looked like they were scowling at me the whole time. And they'd come up to me and shake my hand and say, hey, I just wanted to thank you for fighting for us. This is amazing. We've lived here for 30 years and we've never felt like we really had much of a voice in these meetings. And, here you are fighting for us, or trying to listen to us, or you're trying to come up with a common sense way to get our roads paved in our township, or whatever the issue was. And it meant a lot to have those people come up to me and do that, or even just to make the point at the end of the meeting to do the nod or the smile, or to send a message, an email or a text later, or whatever. So if you see someone who's making good decisions, even if you don't agree with them all the time, please try to focus on the parts that you agree with and let them know that's how they're doing right. Number 1, that might be all they need to keep doing the right thing. But number 2, it's going to help balance if you do have to let them know, hey, you're screwing up here, and here. That was not constitutional. You're going to have to do something about that. Or, gosh, you guys just kicked out all the parents from this meeting in violation of the Open Meetings Act. Whatever it is. You have more of an impact than you think. Even as one individual, someone who may never talk to that person again, you do have power. Of course, power comes in numbers a lot easier, but you have power to do something. Run for office. Go to Patriot meetings. Join forums on self-hosted websites, or even on Facebook while the groups are still allowed to function, or in whatever way you can, meet up with like-minded people to figure out what kinds of things that they're doing and get involved in those ways. honestly, it all makes a difference. People who only sit at home and are, Facebook keyboard warriors, that's not all for nothing, but it's not everything, right? So if you're going to be a keyboard warrior, use that skill to email each of your state reps and your senator or your school board members, or, to write letters of encouragement to the government officials you think that are doing the right thing. So it doesn't matter if you are hospital bound or, you're totally able-bodied person. It doesn't matter if you are rich or poor, or, you work 300 hours in a day and, barely scraping by, or, you're a millionaire and you don't have to work. You have a voice and you can find a way to make it heard, and you may not know that they're listening. You may not think they can hear you, but they are. I guarantee you that they are. So don't give up on trying to have your voice heard. Anyway, that's at least a few of the pieces there. For the few, I guess, few dozen anyway, that are still watching at this hour, I will say thank you for sticking it out with me on this video, but also in general. Please know that Restore Freedom is still alive and will still be fighting to restore our freedom and restore our government of the people, by the people, and for the people. I will not stop fighting to have more freedom and less government. Not ever. If I'm breathing, I'm going to be fighting for that. And it is with that in mind that I renew my prayer request that there's a situation we're dealing with in getting into our new home, and we ran into some unscrupulous people. At any rate, contracts mean something, no matter what state you're in. And I just want to follow my contract. So I could go on a whole 2-hour video just about the insane things we're experiencing and having to go through on just trying to purchase a house. At any rate, I ask for your prayers that we get that situation settled, because if you really take a step back and look at it, what's happening? Yeah, you have some greedy sellers that are trying to pull a fast one, and when that didn't work, then they try to do other things and other things, and it became egregious, like insane things that I've never even heard of, that even attorneys down here have never even heard of people doing. But in reality, what is it? What's happening? The fight for freedom that we're on, the things that we can all do together through Restore Freedom, they're powerful. And the closer you get to being on that mission that God has for you, the harder that the devil is going to try to use his resources to stop you and to bring your fight for freedom or your fight for justice or whatever mission it is that you're on from God, to bring that to a grinding halt. So I'd love to get this dealt with. Also the case from Allegan County. I'd love to get these two things done and over with, because I have a heck of a lot more freedom fighting in me. Certainly more than what you guys have seen from me in the last few months. So I'd love to be able to be in that position where my daily freedom fight can be back in the public eye, so that you're seeing and hearing more, and you're knowing how my work is impacting you, and how what I'm doing can empower you to go out and fight for freedom yourself. But I need to not have literally everything I've ever worked for and my husband's ever worked for literally stolen out from under us. I need to be able to have a home to live in and not be physically assaulted or threatened, or any other number of insane things that have been happening. So I ask that you guys continue to pray that we can have some bit of normalcy, some permanency, that I can, finalize this sale of this purchase of our new home, and just be able to follow the contract, um, and be able to move on so we can fight for freedom. And so Emma can have some sort of a normal life. I mean, that was a huge reason why we moved down here when we did, so that if I'm going to continue to fight for freedom, she can have a home that she can just have some little kid fun time and be outside playing and make some, more neighbor friends. And I need that for her. She needs that. So I ask for your prayers on that. And again, it's telling you not to leave. Yeah, my house is already built, and we're already down here. I'm not leaving the fight. Let me put it this way. I did not say this in this video, but I have said it before. Two of my kids are in Michigan and going to college in the greater Grand Rapids area. My mother, my father, my mother-in-law, and my father-in-law, my stepmother, my only living grandparent, two of my siblings, and my two sisters-in-law, and my three brothers-in-law, at least through my husband's side. They all live in Michigan. I was born in Michigan. Our three girls were born, well, not just in Michigan, they were all born in the same hospital in Greenville. My parents were born in Michigan. Michigan is a part of who I am, and it always will be. But am I going to be able to fight the fight for freedom for everyone quite as effectively if I'm having to battle each individual little battle because the people in power are ticked off and they're going to try to, come after me for whatever little stupid thing, they make up some speeding ticket charge, or I don't know, whatever garbage, right? I mean, I've had that happen to me more than once in my life by government officials, literally just to stop me from my fight for freedom. I mean, read my 37-page complaint that I filed against the city manager of Belding back in 2016, I think it was. That'll tell you. So, anyway, I am down here because, among many other reasons, I need to be out of the grasp of the people who are trying to stop me. And this is a good place for me to do that. Also, my arthritis and my joint issues and other things are doing a heck of a lot better here than they are in Michigan. And it's only the summer. When winter hits and my joints would really be having problems, oh, my health needs to be down here too. So anyway, okay. Whenever you're, oh, Jane, yes, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the support of all of you. In fact, I know that I haven't been doing as much in the public eye. So, a lot of the donations have gone away or drastically reduced, and I can understand that. But for those of you who thought maybe I was done fighting for freedom and so you stopped donating, I'd ask you to reconsider, because no way, shape, or form am I done fighting for freedom. Certainly not for Michigan. I mean, it's not even on my radar to take the Florida bar exam. That's a whole nother, they don't let attorneys waive in here, because otherwise everybody that's an attorney would retire down here and then practice law. So I'd have to take a whole new bar exam, and I'm not even signed up. I haven't even looked into the requirements, because it's just, I have a fight for freedom, and I will have a fight for freedom in Michigan for quite some time. So please don't give up on me. And if you're able to even donate $5 a month or whatever, I mean, I greatly appreciate any and all donations. And unfortunately, my mail was not routing very well for quite a while, and I just got some letters and things that were sent to me from late June, early July. Um, it is what it is. My mailing address is P.O. Box 333 in Ormond Beach, Michigan, 32175. But that should be on our website, I think. And if it's not, we'll get it on there. I'm pretty sure it is. And I'm sure Lori's also posted it at some point in the comment threads here. But, if you wanted to mail a donation that way, I would greatly appreciate that. In any event, I thank you guys all for watching tonight, and I hope you all have, I was a little harsh on some. Hopefully, only words that were supposed to be spoken. Anyway, um, I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I look forward to working with you on our fight for freedom as we move forward. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great night.